Sometimes, I think to myself, I don't know how this thing is still ticking, but it is. Let's see here. As I pull up this, I got a Breitbart story about Mueller memo recommending 0 prison time for General Flynn. Now, the media, the liberal media, is telling you that this means he gave 70 hours of testimony, but the document is heavily redacted to the point a lot of people are wondering, why the heavy redactions here? What actually is going on? And a lot of people, and then you can find other people who say this is actually a great thing for Donald Trump because there's no reference to collusion. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, a lot of people talking about how China may very well be, ready to start the beginning of the end of the trade war. I'm going to tell you why that may not happen. Also over at conduitnews.com this morning, we got a story about casinos, and going to give you an update there. Also, remember on Friday, we were interviewing Congressman Rick Crawford about the news that the FBI raided a whistleblower's house for documents that Congress already had. We'll give you an update on that story as well. So stay tuned here. We're going to be going live with the terrestrial radio affiliates across Arkansas in 10 seconds.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
I'm already a little bit of a failure this morning. I've got a little bit of a first world problem here. There's a Keurig it's kind of a universal Keurig that my colleagues use around here, and it's one of those singles though, right? Doesn't have a water tank, a big water tank on it. It's like you make 1 cup at a time, and then you got to refill. And so I overfilled it because, you have to kind of estimate how much water to put in. So I have a very, 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 very full coffee cup, and I spilled it all the way down the hall coming in this morning. Anyway, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. 870-275-9799. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. At the top of the show, I just want to remind you guys, if you go to the conduitnews.com store, you can get great Christmas gifts. If you're a fan of Conduit News, you're a fan of some of the phrases we use around here, all of that stuff is available at conduitnews.com, and just click on store. We got a great show for you. Coming up at the top of the next hour, so an hour from now, we'll be talking with Senator Brian King. Senator King is on his way out. He is, not going to be the senator from District 5 in the next legislative session. Bob Ballinger will be. And I wanted to have Senator King on because I wanted to highlight one of the key issues that he has dissented on, stood out, challenged people. He's been, in many cases, a lone voice of truth. and people don't want to hear it, but he states the patently obvious about some of the schemes that are going on down there, and he has for a very long time, and he's tried to stop it. And so I wanted to have him on, and I guess an hour from now, to basically set the record straight, because there are a lot of people on this side of the FBI corruption and the guilty pleas and convictions that are saying things about how they always were against this that, quite frankly, is just not accurate. When you look at how many people opposed State Senator Brian King's bills and attempts to make people disclose the kickbacks, essentially, that they were getting, the illegal monies they were getting from being in office. And so we'll talk about that coming up at 7:05. Then, at 7:33 this morning, we're going to be interviewing an author by the name of Michael Pullera. Now, this I'm very excited about, because this is a little bit of history. He has written a book on a murdered CIA agent back at the fall of the Soviet Union, where the CIA was in the country of Georgia, and how there was a essentially there was a murder of a native Arkansan, actually CIA agent, and how the CIA covered it up because of not wanting to put another spy in jail because they needed the information, or not wanting to put him to death because they needed the information. Anyway, it sounds complicated because it is, and you need to tune in at 7:33. We'll be interviewing the author Michael Pullera, who has been following this massive story for years now, and people are now starting to say, "Man, we think this guy actually has uncovered the truth of what really happened in Georgia." So I'll tell you all about that at 7:33, okay? All right, here we go. Let's start at the top of this situation. I want to start with the whistleblower. So on Friday, we told you about this news that there is a whistleblower who is a whistleblower against the Clinton Foundation. His last name is Kane. His first name, Dennis Kane. Now, from what I can tell, he was some sort of contractor with the government and observed some things about the Clinton Foundation. He's a whistleblower, so he is protected under whistleblower law, supposedly. And he turned over these documents, and he's turned them over to the House and the Senate, from my recollection. He's already turned them over to the government. And yet, the FBI raids his home a couple of weeks ago and is looking for those same documents that he's already given to the government. So one might think, man, I mean, how many more examples do we need that show us that our government is not monolithic? I would say sometimes, but maybe it's most of the time. You have competing interests within different branches of government. I mean, that's clear, but it's even worse than that now, because it's no longer, well, the executive branch competes against the legislative branch and the judicial branch and blah, blah, blah. No, there are agencies inside the executive branch that don't agree on what the executive branch should be doing. It is completely out of control. Completely out of control. So, this story here from the Daily Caller: whistleblower advocates across the political spectrum condemned an FBI raid on the home of a recognized whistleblower who reported potential wrongdoing surrounding the Clinton Foundation, the Uranium One deal, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The Daily Caller News Foundation, in a bombshell report, detailed, and we told you this story on Friday, this Daily Caller story, and then we asked Congressman Rick Crawford about it as well. And you can see that interview over at conduitnews.com or go to the YouTube page for the individual video. They detailed how 16 FBI agents raided the home of Dennis Kane, a former employee of an FBI contractor, back on November 19th. They rummaged through his home for 6 hours, even though he told them that Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz awarded him whistleblower status, according to Kane's lawyer. Horowitz instructed a top aide to personally hand carry the documents to the House and Senate. So not only does the Inspector General have the documents, again, the House and the Senate have the documents. Everyone the Daily Caller News Foundation interviewed said the raid should never have occurred. They said it appeared Kane followed the rules in accordance to the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, which protects federal whistleblowers from retaliation. Quote, I really do question the need for this raid at all, said Nick Schwellenbach, the investigations director for the Project on Government Oversight, a nonpartisan watchdog group. On its face, it doesn't seem like it was necessary. This isn't how we should be treating whistleblowers who are coming forward with information about high-level wrongdoing. It sends a very strong message that you will be treated as a criminal even though what you're doing is to expose a crime or a potential crime. Methinks the Clintons still have really, really long tentacles inside the government. That's my initial... I mean, at this point, come on, quit giving them the benefit of the doubt here. Craig Hallman, a lobbyist for Public Citizen, the liberal advocacy group founded by Ralph Nader, told the Daily Caller News Foundation, well, it certainly sounds like an absolute violation of the spirit of what the whistleblower law is supposed to all be. I mean, if you're not a nation of laws, then you're a nation of men, and you're just capricious, and you can decide who the laws apply to and who the laws don't apply. Doesn't that sum up the tenure of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton? That the laws don't apply to her with her emails, with the deleted emails, with her server. Yeah, the laws don't apply to her, apparently. And if there's even a chance that they might, we get stuff like this that happens. The documents Kane possessed, which he gave to the special agent leading the search, show that federal officials failed to investigate potential criminal activity pertaining to Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, and the Russian company that purchased Uranium One. Okay, so federal officials failed to investigate. Might that be the FBI? So the FBI here wants to know what Congress and the Inspector General Horowitz have? Could that be what's going on here? That there's some sect within the FBI that wasn't given the documents, doesn't actually know what IG Horowitz has, so let's just raid this guy's house so we get the information. Now, in order to do that, they had to get a court order to do it. The court order and all the documents justifying the raid are sealed and are not available for public viewing. Imagine that. Imagine that. But we can't actually go in and see why. I mean, how many times is this going to happen? We're all waiting to see the actual FISA applications of what it took to convince the court, the FISA Covert Committee, to spy on members of the Trump campaign because of, wait for it, Russia collusion. Donald Trump may be a KGB agent. Oh, my gosh. We need an insurance policy. That's all it was. It was just because and just in case he wins, we're going to make sure people think he is a Russian agent. Never mind the fact that the Clintons and the Uranium One and Russia had a deal together. Never mind the little company called Rosatom. Never mind that. Nothing to see here. You know, and we've got these 7 tactics. We refer to them a lot here. 7 ways to grow government. One of those is projection and deflection. We need to add that, oh, by the way, projection and deflection is also a way to, just get away with mass criminal activity, apparently. A conservative attorney on ethics law, Cleta Mitchell, questioned whether the FBI was truthful when it sought the court order. Well, I mean, we know they were truthful when they sought the FISA application. So, I mean, how dare you question the integrity of certain people in the FBI? Obviously, look, and okay. The rank and file, we're not talking about the rank and file FBI. I'm so sick of having to clarify, you make statements and then you're going to have people that are be like, well, not all the, no one is suggesting that it's everyone in the FBI. Matter of fact, probably most of them are, this stuff turns their stomach about what's going on. but there's clearly something wrong. If they did not fully advise the court of his whistleblower status, then I would find that to be extremely troublesome. The main question is whether or not they properly informed the court that this individual is a whistleblower and that he had gone through the procedures to receive whistleblower status. Here's what I want to know. If that is in fact true, who goes to jail? At some point, you've got to make an example out of somebody. Who goes to jail? If you have the FBI continuing to lie to the courts in order to do the raid in the first place, just to get information that part of our government has and they don't have, or maybe it was just an act of intimidation, who knows? But who actually pays the price for it? Was it one person that decided to lie? Was it a collective? Here's the dangerous part. When you look at these, whether it's law enforcement agencies or intelligence agencies, they have a tendency to do something called compartmentalization, where not everybody knows what the actual goal is, but you get enough people doing half of the, a portion of the work, and at the end of the day, something bad has happened, something illegal may have occurred, but no one person is responsible for it. Or at least that's what it looks like. I kind of reject that. I think there's, somebody's pulling the strings. Until Mr. Kane's attorney, that's the whistleblower, until Mr. Kane's attorney is able to see what the FBI or the U.S. attorney presented to the court in order to obtain this search warrant, then we have no way of knowing, and he has no way of knowing whether they fully and properly advised the court that he had whistleblower status and whether they informed the judge that he had gone through all the proper procedures. Now, Schwellenbach here, this person that works for this group, this think tank group, said the judge should release the original documents. I would love to see what's in their subpoena request to the judge, he told the Daily Caller News Foundation. What facts do they present to the judge? I think that is a document that we should see the light of that should see the light of day. Well, I would much rather see the FISA docs first, but yeah, it's going to be par for the course. Now, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley has asked the FBI Director Christopher Wray in a letter written back on November the 30th whether the Bureau was aware at the time of the raid that Mr. Kane had made what appeared to be lawful disclosures to the Inspector General. What I would like to know, I would ask this further question, did Christopher Wray even know this was going on? Did people, how much leeway do some of these agents have? Some of these, people who are in positions of authority, how much leeway do they have to conduct stuff like this? Again, is the United States government monolithic? I don't think so. No, not the way the media would have you believe. Certainly not. And that's what gives credence, credibility to the rumors, or I don't even think it's a rumor now. That's why the deep state is a real thing to me. I mean, I believe in the deep state. I think it's totally real. These lifers who want to subvert any change in the direction that the country's going for whatever reason. They are not being loyal to the Constitution and this idea of the people decide who their rulers are and what direction we go. Instead, they resist every step of the way. If it's significant change. And say what you want to about President Donald Trump. He is unlike any president in our lifetime in terms of shocking the status quo, of essentially challenging what is the norm in Washington. And isn't that what we've been complaining about for decades? That Washington is disconnected and doesn't listen to the people? And that's exactly right. One of the reasons Washington doesn't listen to the people is a very simple economic reason. You ever been to Washington, D.C.? It's a beautiful place. You ever been to Washington, D.C.? It's a utopia for jobs and employment. You know why? Because they're taking all of our money and enriching themselves. And so they think everything's fine. If you live in Washington, D.C., you think things are going fine. But the rest of us, not so much. And it's been building and building and building. And that's why people in Wisconsin voted for Donald Trump. That's why people in Pennsylvania voted for Donald Trump. We're going to take a break. Back in a minute.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
It seems like it was 10 days ago, but it doesn't seem like it's 10 days ago, but I guess it pretty much was. You know, the media been telling us for a while the caravan south of the border doesn't exist. And then, of course, it did exist because then they had all the stories of the tear gas that was used. And can you believe that Trump would because nobody's ever done it. That's not true, obviously. Other presidents have had to use tear gas at the border before. And that prompted the socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She compared the migrant caravan to Jews fleeing the Holocaust. Can you believe this? Hundreds tried to storm the border. And this was, you know, I couldn't believe it when this happened. That, here's her.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody.
All right, here we go. Senator Kristen Gillibrand. Kristen Gillibrand. Where's she from? What state is Kristen Gillibrand? I don't even know. Is she California? She replaced Barbara Boxer. Is that where she's? I think that's right. But I don't know for sure. New York. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, so Kristen Gillibrand. She tweeted this. Our future is female, intersectional, powered by our belief in one another, and we're just getting started. You know, I think this is a perfect segue into, Joe, what I mentioned to you at the end of the show. I think it was Monday, maybe Tuesday. I was out. I don't get out very often. You know, with an 18-month-old. It doesn't happen very often. And see this little girl with a shirt on that says "Girls Never Quit." And I think to myself, wow, a lot's changed in 18 months. I don't know, you didn't used to see that. And see this "Girls Never Quit." And I'm just like, why would parents want their kids to wear shirts that are lies, that are proven, things that are easily proven to be false? Girls never quit. Not a true statement, first of all. Men quit. Women quit. humans quit things all the time. By the way, what about death? I mean, if you want to take this ultimately to this conclusion, yeah, I mean, everybody's going to disappoint somebody in terms of that, death is stalking us all, right? So the idea girls never quit, not true. But why is it a slogan? Why is it being worn? Because there's for some reason there is this idea out there that women are oppressed, so we need to encourage women and girls with what? Lies? With things that aren't true? I mean, we are devolving right now from the point where, we used to talk about humanity in general and freedom in general. And because I think a lot of people in society started conforming, because it was their choice, to what is now called traditional gender roles, there is an effort out there to divide, to show people how they're different from one another, and not to show people how we are the same and how we agree on things and how my freedom ends where yours begins. And that's why you have a United States senator saying that the future is female. What kind of totalitarian, weird sci-fi movie? These people are trying to... The future is female. Resistance is futile. I guess we're all going to be women. We're going to get assimilated into the collective. Come on, this is certainly where we're headed. Back in just a moment. Asking to be considered a refugee and applying for status isn't a crime. It wasn't for Jewish families fleeing Germany. It wasn't for targeted families fleeing Rwanda. It wasn't for communities fleeing war-torn Syria. And it isn't for those fleeing violence in Central America. So there we go. We have the comparison of the Holocaust there. So I wanted to bring in Rabbi Ari Spiro joins us. Of course, he is the author of the book Push Back, Reclaiming the American Judeo-Christian Spirit. Rabbi Spiro, welcome back to the program, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
What was your reaction when you heard this?
Well, my reaction was, I like you say, what do you call her? Oh, crazy-o? I like that. But this is more than just her typical oh, crazy-o. This is really obscene. They're exploiting the Holocaust for their leftist goals. They want open borders because they can do what they want with elections that way. Once these people get into the country, even though illegal, we have two things that happen. Either one, you have places like California that say that illegals can vote, or you have other places that say, well, illegals can't vote, but they somehow make sure that they vote anyways. And so they're just going to win every election, and they'll transform America into the socialist state that they want, with a ruling class being the ones who will control America, and we, the middle class, paying the taxes for all of the freebies that the illegal immigrants will have, that the American taxpayer himself does not have. But it's obscene because the Jewish people, during the time of the Holocaust, they were hunted down by the Gestapo. They were put on trains for torture at concentration camps and killed. Hitler decided a full-scale genocide against the Jewish people to destroy them. Every Jewish family was set upon for destruction. We're here. No one in Honduras is going after all of these families and saying we're going to kill you, make you extinct. No one's doing that. No one's rounding them up and putting them in concentration camps. They can live in Honduras. They were offered residency in Mexico. The Jews weren't offered residency anywhere. If they stayed in Europe, they were dead. So it's obscene to make this comparison, besides being just wrong. But they do it. The left does this because it works, because nobody wants to have a Holocaust again. People feel guilty about it, and they say, oh, if this is a Holocaust or a shred of a Holocaust, let's not do it, and we'll just open up the border. So,
bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So there's something real quick before we move on to the next story. There is something strange to me here. First of all, for Senator Christian Gillibrand to say that the future of the country is female, we can talk about that in a minute. Can you even say that? I mean, if the future is female, isn't that contradicting the LGBT RSTLNE Would You Like to Buy Val Community's idea that female is a binary construct and is wrong? But the second thing she says in this tweet, our future is female, intersectional. I don't know what intersectional means. So to update you on what intersectional means, we have our definition looker-upper. Joe is with us. Joe, intersectional, what is it?
I looked multiple places to find this. I think this is the one that I found that makes the most sense to me. It said, I'm just going to read it verbatim off of this website. It defines intersectionality as the complex, cumulative manner in which the effects of different forms of discrimination combine, overlap, or intersect. To break that down, it essentially means that discrimination does not exist in a bubble. Different kinds of prejudice can be amplified in different ways when put together. So the idea is that women are oppressed and discriminated against, and is it not just one type? So, for instance, a white atheist woman is discriminated and oppressed in a different way than an Asian deist, or a Buddhist. I don't know. I'm literally throwing out cultures, and they are oppressed and they are discriminated against in different ways and in different intensities because of their race, their gender.
Okay, so it sounds to me like they're trying to make discrimination an unsolvable problem. So where there's always a grievance,
basically,
right? I mean,
they're just throwing labels on victims. You remember how you said that there's eventually going to be that one person that can always claim the victim card because of what they are, because of what they claim to be, because they've checked all the boxes of like, these are all the victim types. I fall into all of these categories. They'll eventually be that one person. That's essentially what they're making, is they're creating victim boxes, saying I'm discriminated because I'm this and this and this and this, and I am more discriminated than you are because I have more bubbles worth of discrimination than you do.
Oh, it's like a credit system.
Essentially, is what
so I'm entitled to more.
It looks like to me.
I'm entitled to more stuff because I'm more of a victim. Oh my goodness.
Or I'm more discriminated against, therefore my voice should be louder.
Yeah. So my voice is more valid because I'm more discriminated against. Yeah. It's a lot. See, if you come at it from a principle that all men are created equal, and that we need equal protection under the law to just, allow things to happen, voluntary cooperation and freedom, that is a much simpler solution to all of this, right? And obviously where there are clear injustices, but this is essentially a perpetual state of division. And let's divide this group into two. Then let's divide it into four. Then let's just keep dividing it. And eventually, if you've got these people who are constantly thinking that they're victims or they're more victimized, there's no way to solve their problems. There's no way there is a way for reconciliation. But I'm saying, if there isn't a way for reconciliation in their minds, at what point does it descend into violence? Well, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I told you this yesterday. That if we allow, as a country, not even as like political parties, but as a country as a whole, if we continue to allow the Democratic Party to play their games of division over and over again, if we allow that to happen and just let it flourish, they're going to continue to do what they do best, continue to divide us, and they're going to continue to push us apart.
Yeah.
But if we unite as a country, regardless of race, gender, any of that stuff, the stuff that really doesn't matter,
just reject it,
and reject it, and just become Americans, just one body of people, Democrats will never win again.
Yeah,
because
I would agree with that.
Because our eyes as a country will be open to what they've been doing for years, and I think. I think there's a generation that's waking up to this finally.
And I think there is
exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and I think it is a millennial one, or the one maybe after
Generation Z.
Generation Z, yeah, because I think they're seeing, I think they're seeing how weird it is that their entire lives they've been told that they're either an oppressor or they're a victim, and can you imagine? It's got to be exhausting to be a leftist. If you think about it, there's always something to be absolutely miserable about. And if you're trying to figure out how to marry all of these different groups, right? Like the future is female, but what about what about the binary construct and the fight against the binary man, the binary system? We've got to fight that. It's just got to be absolutely exhausting to constantly be in this state of trying to figure things out that used to be as sure as the sun rose. It was just a self-evident truth. We are now unraveling centuries, thousands of years of self-evident truths. Why? Why? There wasn't even before, the idea of individual liberty, even before the idea, the Magna Carta, there wasn't this invention, and I know that the left would argue with me on this, but there wasn't this idea of, nobody was challenging a man and a woman and a family unit. I mean, yeah, there was people who were gay and stuff, but there wasn't this whole, gender and sex are two different things, and let me tell you why,
There weren't marches in the street that were literally people protesting the idea of this is a massive community of people who are homosexual and fall into all of these different categories. There weren't mass, parades in the streets of this at that time promoting this stuff.
Yeah.
It was just...
As a millennial, Joe, do you think that your generation thinks that they're somehow like the Aristotles and Platos of gender science? Like they're like it's like a renaissance, or it's like they've discovered that they're evolving.
It's actually it's more of an enlightenment.
Yeah, an enlightenment. Like we're taking the next step in evolution forward by trying to basically deny how we were created is really what they're doing.
From what I can tell, the Renaissance, to be honest, happened, or the gender theory renaissance happened maybe 2 generations before mine. It started because this Renaissance was 1 or 2 people really kind of revolutionizing the idea, and I'm using their words, revolutionizing the idea of gender theory. And then once my generation came along and started to adopt these things heavily,
yeah, because they were told that this is the truth. It became more of an
enlightenment of a generation.
Yeah, okay.
Which I would call it.
It's not enlightenment, but
my brain is not working right now. Whatever the opposite of an enlightenment is.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not. Well, it certainly would be like just devolving, is what I would say. Speaking of this, there is an association of university and college faculty and other academic professionals. It's called the American Association of University Professors, the AAUP. It was founded in 1915, and they have released a new statement in which they are condemning attempts to define gender as biologically determined at birth, insisting that the traditional position regarding gender has been, quote, thoroughly discredited by over 50 years of feminist, trans, queer, and critical race research, and by lived experience. So exactly the opposite of what I just said. Self-evident truth. They're now saying, no. The self-evident truth is. And how in the world thoroughly discredited by over 50 years of feminist, trans, queer, critical race research? What does race have to do with gender? And just get all the marginalized people out there, the so-called marginalized people, let's put them in one statement just to make sure. I mean, the more victimized people you can put in your statement, the more points you get from it, or the more I'm about to lose my mind here, folks. I don't know if I can take it.
I also love looking at how terms and sometimes movements evolve over time. For instance, the feminist movement went from being, oh man, we just want to be equal, like we just want everything to be equal, like all this stuff, to we no longer want equality, we want domination.
Oh yeah, special rights, not equal rights, but special rights.
Exactly. So it went from we just want to be equal with the men of the country, and they're close. They're like I'm not gonna say I don't know statistics well enough, and I don't have those like in-depth statistics right off the cuff to be able to go, oh man, yes, they're absolutely equal in terms of how things are, because there are still people who preach and spout, no, they get paid like 75 cents to the dollar and all that kind of stuff.
The gender pay gap, though. That's a whole other can of worms, because like I said earlier, there are some there's a lot of people that still fall into gender norms in terms of there are women who want, to have children. There are women who want to do these things that men can't do. And that certainly has an effect on the economy or your, economic potential. And, but to say that, oh no, it's like, I want equal protection under the law. I do not want an equality of outcome. I don't want some arbiter somewhere saying we have to guarantee what the outcome is, because that is not freedom. So I want you to understand something here, how crazy it is that an organization that was founded in 1915, an organization of intellectuals, an organization of educators, and by the way, this story is by Hank Breen over the Daily Wire. The American Association of University Professors is releasing a statement, and it now condemns to define gender as something that is biological. That you can biologically determine gender at birth. It's nuts. It's nuts now. It's literally black as white. It is outrageous. The AAUP, this Association of American Professors, complained, quote, in their statement, authoritarian efforts such as these can justify racial, class, and sexual policing that disciplines forms of kinship and homemaking, including same-sex, multi-generational, or other non-normative households that deviate from established nuclear family norms. By substituting their ideology for years of assiduous research, they impose their will in the name of a science that is without factual support. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, did you ever think that the left would deny science? I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. These are the same people that deny life at conception. Now think about that. These are the same people that say it's not a life, just a bunch of human cells. The same people that say, that's not meaningful. So, should we be surprised? I mean, I guess I've never thought of it like this before. Yeah. Well, yeah. So the fact is, I mean, the phrase "life at conception." You take a fertilized egg. I'm talking about the moment of fertilization, right? You ever seen that happen? You ever seen like a actual a video of what happens? When the gametes, let's say, when the gametes come together. And all of a sudden, it's just like this wall forms around the egg, and it's like, whoa! I mean, it's like, because that's something that's happened. You've got two different strands of DNA that have created something different now. If you take that cell, right, and you put it on Mars, and we send a space rover up there. It takes 6 months to get there, and you got the little rover, and he's going around, and he's finding, and he sees, we found life on Mars. It's life. Here it is. We found it on another planet. That would be the headlines. They would say, life found on Mars. Right? And the left would probably be like, see, we told you there's no God. Anyway, I digress. My point is this. They are denying the truth, the obvious truth of what life is. And now they are denying the obvious truth that we are created different. And that there is also a set norm of how men behave, mostly, whether it's, there are certain factors of, cultural norms and stuff as well that can affect that. But, for the most part, for example, and I've heard this said before, Joe, but, for example, there are people who are born without a limb or something. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people are saying, I'm born this way or I'm born that way or whatever. But we don't now say, like, if somebody's born without a limb, we don't say, okay, well, this is normal. We do understand that humans have 2 arms and humans have, 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 legs, 1 heart, digestive system, you know what I'm saying? And we're able to detect the anomalies. It's not that you discriminate against people, but the point being to say that there are 2 genders, there are 2 sexes. You can determine those by the biology of on the birth. Why are we even talking about this? This is a religion to some people. They are devoted to what they think are new ideas with a religious, dogmatic fervor. It is so different, and people need to be aware of it. They need to be aware of the world that they're living in, the battleground, if you will, because within all of this, I think there is always hope to try to engage the other side, to try to find some sort of common ground. But this has to be there. In my opinion, I don't know there is no common ground with these 2. They're completely, they're completely opposite of one another, and they're the foundations of how we live, plan our society. You know what I'm saying? So I think it has to be confronted and defeated. I think the truth has to be spoken over and over and over again when it comes to, this specific issue. All right, we're going to take a break here. And when I come back, I want to talk to you about, we got Brian King coming up at the top of the next hour. So an actor has responded to critics calling him, calling the iconic Rudolph film bigoted and sexist. We'll tell you what he said. Is he a he? Can we say he? She? There's also a story out there where they're trying to say that they don't want babies to be called babies anymore. They want them to be called babies, as in They. Babies. And I don't know. Or babies. I didn't think of the word baby was assigning somebody a gender. Anyway, don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
That's why they do it, because it works with a lot of people.
And I agree with you about their long-term goals. They want open borders because it eventually will translate, they know, to more votes. And you've heard people say that these elites that are running things, they really do need like a permanent underclass. That's why they don't like the middle class, and so more illegal immigration means lower wages it means a dwindling middle class and everything else. But I'd like to get your opinion on this concept of open borders, because there are a lot of people on the left that, they see these people at the border and they just, their heart breaks and they think that the right is evil. Why wouldn't we let them in? Why wouldn't we help them? And, a lot of it's millennials. And I just think to myself, why is it that the idea of having a border and
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Over at conduitnews.com, that's conduitnews.com. Click on store and get your Marble Palace mug today. Also, your Mother Government mug. We played a Mother Government parody a moment ago that is actually a couple of years old, but it still rings true because they still want an internet tax and they still want the Arkansas gas taxes to increase. And we're going to be looking at that, covering that, coming up in the January session that starts on January the 14th. The phone number, 870-275-9799. On Monday, we told you about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, how Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. The story is really about homophobia, the exploitation of workers, and, essentially the people, it seems like the people of the left would rather Rudolph had gotten on disability and joined a union somewhere and voted for Hillary Clinton instead of trying to overcome his red nose. That's different, right? Again, this goes back to, like, what's normal? It's not normal for a reindeer to have a red glowing nose. Not a normal thing. How dare you? How dare you, you bigots? How dare you point out that people are born different and they could use that difference to an advantage? And it's like, well, Rudolph is he's only useful. He's only useful when the evil man wants to exploit his disability. Wants to say, you're fine just the way you are, Rudolph. They're mad, Do you know Rudolph was a slave? He was pulling a sleigh. Don't let the man domesticate you. Anyway, we could go on forever. But Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, this is the Daily Wire's Amanda Pestagiacomo, whatever. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm terrible at pronouncing a lot of words. As one can imagine, sane people from all walks of life were pretty flabbergasted, she writes, and frankly annoyed with the needless complaining on social justice far left. So actress Corinne Conley, who voiced the doll in the original 1964 children's movie, Conley basically told TMZ that critics whom she likened to Scrooge clearly did not fully watch or understand the movie. Quote, certainly in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, everyone is reconciled happily at the end of the movie, and let's hope in today's society that the things people are bullying about can also be rectified. I just can't imagine it affecting anyone in a negative way. They must be like Scrooge. Tell them to watch Scrooge. Now stop for a second. That is exactly right on point with a lot of what I have been saying about the concept of reconciliation and how it is something that is such a desired goal. And the idea that life is messy and that not everything is perfect because we are not perfect beings and we are not in a perfect world, but somehow in the midst of that and in the midst of all of the drama and all of the bad decisions people make, that in the end, there are examples of things still working out generally for the good. And that is such an encouraging thought. The pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of men. It's from Lord of the Rings. But this is what's so interesting about it, because I've said for a long time now that reconciliation is the goal, but it's not what the media wants you to. They don't want to report on it, even when it happens. When you had the South Carolina shooter go into the African-American church and murder people, and then you had the photos of the Confederate battle flag and everything else, and that this guy was a racist, he killed these people because they were black, in a church no less, but then during the arraignment, 2 days later or a day later, the people of the church were openly forgiving the man who just killed their family and friends in cold blood, urging him to look to Christ for redemption, repentance, and forgiveness of sin. They were more concerned about his eternal soul than the souls that he took or he, sent to heaven the day before. And then the people of South Carolina came together. That same time, there was an MSNBC reporter on the ground reporting people started singing gospel hymns. It was a site of reconciliation where there shouldn't have been reconciliation, and the media covered it for one day, and then they looked to the capital of South Carolina that was still flying the Confederate battle flag, and they made that the issue of division because reconciliation doesn't sell.